What's going on, kings and queens? Thanks for joining me again on Keeping It Copacetic. It's time for us to take a moment to relax, kick back, put our feet up, take a moment, regroup. I'm sipping on some ice cold ginger ale. Join me, get yourself a cup of iced tea, cold soda, glass of wine, make your cocktail, mocktail, shot of this or that, ice cream, soda, whatever it is that you can just kick back and take a moment and treat yourself. Put your feet up, kick back in your favorite chair, just relax. Find that pillow to rest your head on. If you're commuting, don't do any of that. Just stay alert, keep your eyes on that road, get you something that keeps you awake and revived. Maybe some southern sweet tea. Southern sweet tea. That always helps. Most importantly, be safe. So we started a new book last time. It was Shortcut. Introduced our male character, Ernest. And Ernest is a businessman. He has a barbershop and he's in the hood and he's looking to expand. He wants to grow. We all want to grow in whatever we're doing. So we can all feel where Ernest is coming from and identify where he's trying to go. I think in chapter 1, we kind of introduced Ernest. There was a shooting at the barbershop again, and this kind of cements something he's been thinking about for a while, that he wants to expand, do better, get out of the hood, make some of those long, long dollars that he sees from some of his clients making and enjoying. So let's go ahead and get into chapter 2 of Shortcut. Ernest left the barbershop late that night. It was around 8 o'clock when he finished with his last client. It had been a long day, and that's the way he liked it. The longer the day, the longer the pay. Andrea still had a few hours before she would be done. There was one client in her chair, one under the dryer, and another one she hadn't even touched. Ernest never had to worry about her being safe. He could count on Leon to stay at the shop until her last clients were styled and club ready, and he cleaned the place a bit before he locked up. Tired more mentally than physically, he was too restless to go home. More than anything, he wanted to drink an ice cold beer and drive around for a while to wind down. But he didn't want to keep his mama waiting or show up with beer on his breath. A couple of minutes later, he pulled his black Ford Expedition over to the curb in front of the duplex. He sat there for a moment before he got out of the car, looking at the front window and the door of the place that held so many of his memories. He couldn't help wondering when and if he would ever be able to say goodbye to this duplex. It seemed so small and vulnerable to him now. He had begged his mama to let him move her someplace where there was peace and quiet, but she refused, telling him she was happy and comfortable around the people she had known for more than 30 years. She would always say that they might raise hell and act crazy, but they were family, the only family she had ever known anyway. This was where Ernest had grown up, raised in the 3rd Section 8 duplex from the corner of Sherwood Lane, the only child of Sheila Shaw. His father, Tyrell Gibbs, was a fast-talking car dealer who owned a car lot full of used lemons. He met Sheila when he was visiting his twin brother, Tyrone, who lived next door to Sheila's foster mother, Miss Jerry, in Edge Hill. First time Tyrell saw Sheila, she was sweeping the sidewalk in front of the house, wearing shorts and a t-shirt that exposed her slim brown arms and legs. He thought she looked like an Ethiopian queen. He winked at her and flashed his front teeth that were framed in gold as he strolled to his brother's screen door. To Sheila, the attention from him was like rain in a desert for a parched nomad. The next week, when he came by to visit his brother, she was watching and waiting from the living room window and smiled back at him. It was on the following week that he came over across the fresh-cut lawn and struck up a conversation with her while she sat on the porch singing to the radio. "Hello, young lady," he said, propping his right leg up on the steps and leaning on his knee. "I had to come over and tell you that it sounded like Aretha Franklin was over here singing." "Thank you," Sheila said, blushing. "She's my favorite singer." Tyrell grinned and leaned in closer to her. "Well, she better watch out. With that voice you got, you might take her place." Sheila smiled big with all her teeth showing as she relished the thought. "I could never be as good as her." "You could be better," he said, showering her with compliments. "You're pretty enough to be a model. You might even be a movie star." Nobody had ever made Sheila feel so special. She was ready to buy anything he was selling, or at least put it in the layaway. For the first time in her life, she didn't have to compete with somebody else to be noticed. He made her feel like it was her birthday. The fact that he was strong, handsome, and mature was simply icing on the cake. After a while, Tyrell started coming by to see Sheila instead of his brother. That's when Miss Jerry started making a fuss. She said he was too old to be talking to a girl Sheila's age. Yet Sheila wasn't about to give up the person that made her feel like sunshine on a cloudy day. That just meant she had to sneak around to see him. Every other day, she would wait for him down the block and around the corner. He would take her to the Dairy Queen, buy her a burger, fries, and a strawberry milkshake, and drive her over to Shelby Park where they could talk and have their alone time. That was where she lost her virginity. Sheila was thrilled to be loved by a grown man. It made her feel protected. 3 months later, when she told him they were going to have a baby, he told her about his wife and their family of 4 children across town in East Nashville. Sheila got out of the car at the park, walked all the way back to Edge Hill, and never saw him again. Pregnant at 17 years old, Sheila refused to consider abortion or adoption. When Ernest was born, she got a job working at Mary's Barbecue Pit, saved her money for a year to get her own place, and moved out of Mrs. Jerry's house. It was 1978, and she was 19 years old. She didn't need anybody's permission. She was grown now. And even though she'd never gotten the chance to be a child in her own young life, she vowed Ernest would always be her baby. As pretty as she was, after Tyrell misled her, Sheila never gave the guys who tried to talk to her a second look. She didn't know who she could trust, and she wasn't about to make the same mistake twice. In her eyes, Ernest was her angel, someone for her to love and someone who would always love her. Sheila wanted to raise him right, so she took him to church every Sunday. When Ernest started school, she changed her hours to the second shift so that she could be there when he left in the morning and be there when he got home. Despite the fact that she cooked most of the food at Mary's Barbecue, she never brought him food home from work. She cooked him a fresh meal to put on the table every day, whether he ate it or not. Ernest made her proud with the better than average grades he made in elementary school and then being on the honor roll when he got to middle school. Sheila was determined that the A's and B's would continue throughout high school. Every afternoon before she locked the door behind her on the way to work, she made sure he was busy doing his homework. Ernest's brilliance in school wasn't so much intelligence or due diligence. It was dumb luck. He was born with a photographic memory. He indulged his mom and never hit the door until he was sure she was busy cleaning, slicing, and seasoning the chicken and ribs in the kitchen at Mary's Barbecue Pit. So for the many hours she figured he spent poring over his books, he was actually out dabbling in petty street hustles with Vince, trying to be a gangster. During the summer when he turned 14, Ernest's voice changed from El DeBarge to Barry White, and the shadows above his lip and around his face turned to fuzz. Sheila, having been raised in a household of girls, had no idea what to do for a boy going through puberty. She bought him a deluxe grooming kit for shaving and a pair of clippers and trimmers as his birthday gift. He learned how to use them in more ways than she had imagined. With a straight razor, he learned how to give himself a perfectly smooth shave and cut a flawless hairline. And when he hung out with Vince and their crew, he kept it in his pocket at all times, ready to slice anybody that stepped to him. Sheila heard his car pull up to the street and watched her son from behind the sheer curtains as he set out in his car. She worried about him more now that he was a man than she did when he was a boy. Back when he was younger, his problems weren't so big, and she could make most things all right again. She could tell he had had a lot on his mind lately, and she didn't want to add more things for him to worry about, but there was some news she needed to give him. She walked to the front door, opened it, and waved. Buttons, the poodle he bought to keep her company 11 years ago, was yapping beside her in the doorway. Ernest turned off the ignition when he saw her standing in the doorway wearing her flowered housecoat. "Hey, Mama," he said, getting out of the car. "Come on in here, child. What you doing out there wasting gas?" "Taking a minute to think," he said, walking up the short concrete path. "What you thinking about?" she asked, looking at him as he came through the door. "A friend of mine is thinking about opening up a full-service barbershop downtown, something like a spa for men." She nodded her head. "Uh-huh. You hungry?" "I got some whiting fried up in the kitchen," she said, closing the door behind him. "Yeah, that sounds good," he said, following her through the narrow hallway with Buttons trotting in front of him. He took his usual seat at the small round table while she made him a plate. She poured him a glass of sweet tea, a glass of cola for herself, and pulled the chair out across from him. As soon as she sat down, Buttons jumped in her lap for the family meeting. So tell me what your friend has on his mind, Sheila said, comfortable and ready to listen. This was the way they had communicated ever since Ernest went to kindergarten. They talked about everything, but always in third person. Mama, a friend of mine wet his pants. A friend had to go to the principal's office. A friend cut class. A friend of mine got suspended. A friend of mine likes this girl. A friend tried smoking. A friend was drinking. And a friend got this girl pregnant. Sheila knew who he was referring to from the time he was 5 years old, even though she never let on that he was the friend. With his eyes on the fried, crisp fish, some greens, and a sliced tomato, he started talking. He's thinking there's not a lot of cash floating around in the hood right now, and if he wants to get ahead and make some real bread, he has to go where the money is. So where does he think that is? She asked intently, wanting to get the full gist of what he was saying. Downtown, midtown, or in the gulch somewhere, he said before he took a bite of fish. I can't argue with that, she said, pondering over it. Even so, it sounds like something he needs to give a lot more thought before he steps out there. You don't need to run out half-cocked and lose everything he's worked for. Ain't no shortcuts in this world. I would tell him to take his time, save his money, and when the time is right, he'll be ready. It's time now, Mama, Ernest said anxiously. It's past time. I know how he feels. My business has been slacking too. Brothers are growing their hair long, wearing cornrows, nappy twists, and dreads again. I need to expand my clientele and get some of that white money. Sheila nodded, understanding his dilemma. All I know is that's not a decision your friend needs to rush into. If I could, son, I would help you do something like that. But right through here, I can barely make my own ends meet. What are you talking about, Mama? Ernest asked, taken aback. He wasn't about to see her struggling again. You know to call me. I didn't want to bother you with it, she said, staring into the glass of brown soda. I've been off sick from work a lot lately, and my check has been short. Doctors say my kidneys are weakening. They probably gonna go out on me. Ernest shook his head and pushed the plate away. He was caught off guard, but he couldn't say he was surprised. His mama didn't like water, and she never drank it. She preferred Pepsi or Coca-Cola, whichever one was on sale. He looked down and frowned at the plate of food with his appetite lost. Sheila looked down too, searching for a hidden message among the lines inside her hand. She hated to trouble him. She wanted to make it all right for her child as she always did when he was a boy. But he was a man now with adult-sized problems. In Ernest's mind, those problems had just gotten bigger. So what else did the doctor say? He asked, breaking the silence. They say I might have to go on the dialysis machine soon, she said, downhearted. Don't focus on that, Mama. It doesn't have to go down like that. All you have to do is take better care of yourself. Try to leave those cokes alone and drink more water. I can't stand the taste of water. Besides, it's too late for me to change anyway. The damage is done. Ernest got up from his chair, mad and sad. He couldn't stand to hear her giving up so easy. Try for me, Mom, and the kids, he urged, scraping his plate in the trash before he rinsed it in the sink. It might help and do you some good. I'll be all right, baby, she said, standing up and walking him to the door. Anyway, I was thinking about that thing you said your friend wanted to do. Even if he doesn't decide it's the right time for him to step out there, I think it might be a good idea for you to do something like that. You've got a lot going for you. I was thinking that too, he said, turning around to give her a hug before he left. She called out to him before he got in his car. Be patient, son. Keep doing what you're doing, and I know it will come together for you. He turned around. Thanks, Mama. I love you. Make sure you lock the door. You're my heart, Ernest. Be careful, she said as she shut the door. His cell phone rang as soon as he turned the key in the ignition. He pulled it out of his hip pocket and saw it was Rochelle. Ernest let it ring. He didn't feel like talking. He wanted to listen to his own thoughts until he got to the house. He sent her a text message that he was on his way home so she wouldn't start tripping. He and Rochelle had been together off and on since their sophomore year in high school. Short and petite, she was more cute and sassy than beautiful. Whenever she wasn't sporting an almost to the waist weave, she wore her hair permed and cut short. She was golden brown like baked chicken with big dark brown eyes that she framed with press-on lashes. She was the kind of girl who would prop her hand on her hip and tell you about yourself without question. He liked kicking it with her back in the day, but he was just having fun. Whenever they got together, he used a condom if he had one, pulled out when he didn't. She got pregnant in their senior year. His mama was pissed when he told her. She was just starting to think that maybe he could go to college, that he might be smart enough to become a doctor. The baby and his run in with the cops forced him to review his options. He did go to college, even if it wasn't the one his mama had planned on, barber college. When he finished, he rented a booth and a shop on Jefferson Street with Leon for a few years while he saved to get his own spot. Rochelle wasn't the only female he was dealing with at the time, but after she got pregnant again, he decided to marry her. He wasn't crazy in love with her, but he didn't want her to be his baby mama and his kids to grow up like him without a father. He never denied cheating on her a few times before their marriage, maybe a couple of times after, and her family never let him forget it. They were always giving him side eyes whenever he came around. He didn't consider himself a player or a dog. He just had a weakness for sweet lips and heavy hips. The main reason his attention wandered is that he and Rochelle didn't have anything in common aside from their kids. Over their 16 years together, he developed a broadened horizon, and she sustained chronic tunnel vision. He's a dreamer, she's a realist. He's ambitious, she's indifferent. He wants it all: prestige, money, status, everything that Vince has. She doesn't care about any of that. There are only additional things to come between them. By the time Ernest got home, he had made up his mind. He parked on the driveway outside of the garage of their three-bedroom home, pushed the lock on his car fob, and went inside. He wasn't sure how he was going to bring up the subject of opening a spa with Rochelle, but it didn't matter. She was going to raise hell no matter what he said. "What took you so long?" Rochelle fussed as soon as he came through the door. She didn't like coming across angry all the time, but he always gave her a reason. He was the one who made her feel insecure about their relationship. She'd only had the third baby to tie him tighter around her. "You know I went to check on my mama," Ernest said defensively. "She cooked, so I ate." "I wish you thought about me half as much as you think about your mama," she said, blocking his way. "Now you're being ridiculous, Shell. You need to stop. It doesn't make any sense for you to be jealous of my mama." "That's if the only place you stopped was at your mama," she remarked. Ernest walked past her. "I'm not going through this with you tonight. You just want to argue." "That's not what I want," she said with her tone softening. "I don't have much choice when you want to hang out all the time." Ernest immediately canceled any plans he had for talking about his idea, waved her off, and went down the hallway towards their bedroom to take a shower. He heard the TV on in Rhonda and Rihanna's room. He stuck his head in the door. The girls, lovely mixtures of him and Rochelle, were laughing and watching some horror movie. "Hey, ladybugs, what y'all watching?" he asked, smiling. Rihanna, who kept her headphones on all the time, waved. Rhonda answered, "Hey, Daddy, it's Scary Movie 4. You want to watch it with us?" "Not tonight, sweetheart. I'm beat." "Okay," she said with her attention turning back to the show. Ernest turned on the shower in the master bath, undressed, and sat on the edge of the tub while he waited for the water to get hot. The whole day replayed in his head, then last month, then last year, and then 5 years ago. By the time the bathroom had filled with steam, it was clear to him that it was now or never. And that's chapter 2 of Shortcut. Thanks for joining me on Keeping It Copacetic. Please like and subscribe, comment, leave your comments. I'd love to read them, see what you all are thinking about the book. I will see you all next time for chapter 3. Take care of yourselves, take some time to relax, and most importantly, be safe.